If you ask me, there is a huge difference when it comes to the payment schedule within being self-employed and working for an employer. When I used to work for an employer, I used to get paid every second Thursday, and it was like clockwork. Nowadays, payday has changed significantly when it comes to my life and my lifestyle, and that's why we're going to be talking about gig work paydays. Last week on the Dash with Ash, I talked to you lovelies about me going from full-time to part-time. And the truth be told is it don't matter if you're full-time, part-time, side hustle, or somewhere in between. If you are a gig worker, you have the exact same payday qualities as I do. So first, let me start off by saying that each one of these companies, whether it's DoorDash or Uber Eats, Skip the Dishes, Grubhub, whatever one of them, they all seem to pretty much pay every single week, compared to when you worked for an employer, which paid every 2 weeks. Right there already, getting paid weekly versus every 2 weeks has a huge advantage if you were to ask me. Because sometimes bills come out weekly and they're not reserved for every time you got paid on a Thursday or even a Friday. So when it comes to having weekly income, that can make a substantial difference on how you pay your bills. Here's another thing with these companies. Each one always seems to have a given different date. I believe, if I remember correctly, every Tuesday I get paid by Uber Eats. Every Wednesday I got paid by DoorDash. Every Thursday I got paid by Skip the Dishes. And every Friday I got paid by Instacart. And these are the 4 main companies that I have worked for the last 2 years. So if I worked all 4 of them within a given week, that means I got payday 4 times out of 7 days of the week. That's not a bad deal if you ask me. Even though payday happened to be 4 days of the week, the difference between being paid as a gig worker versus working as an employee for a company is I know that 1, I'm not getting a big fat bonus at the end of the year like I used to with Dallas. But 2, I am not commission based. Although when you are working on pretty much exclusively tips, I can say you pretty much feel like you're commission based. The only difference is I don't have to try to sell you. You are basically trying to sell me to go and grab your order. There is also a huge advantage when it comes to being paid as a gig worker, or at least the paydays of a gig worker. And that's the fact that I can actually make payday pretty much whenever I want. I have never been the type of woman that is against a small price to pay for a certain type of service. And that is something that most, or if not all, of these gig companies offer towards us gig workers. This is something I have mentioned on my YouTube channel several times before. And if you're watching this or listening to this podcast from Spotify, you can catch my YouTube channel at Dash with Ash in Canada, and you can find more stuff there. But on there, I talked about the fact that if you pay a certain fee, depending on the fee that these companies select for you to pay, you can actually get paid within minutes, sometimes hours, or within a 24-hour period. I only use this service with one app because that one app is my main app, and that one is Uber Eats. Now, although other companies charge something like 49 cents, Uber Eats in my area, and yes, they do charge differently per location, but in my area, it is $1.49 for me to have access to instant payout. The advantage to this is I know when my bills come out and I know when I need my money. And since Uber will pay me out every Tuesday, if I need my money up front and faster, I just pay $1.49, and I'm not kidding. By the time that I close my Uber Eats application and open up my banking app and log in, that money is already in my bank account. It's that quick. I know that many gig workers do not want to use this service because they don't want to pay to have their money released. and they don't want any of their money going to these companies. And to be honest, I can truly 100% understand their point of view, and I get that. From my side of things, however, I'm not looking at the fact that these companies are gaining anything from me. I am looking at the fact that I'm gaining it from them. Have you ever been in a situation where you are so stuck financially and you need money instantly, but the only way you could get it, for example, is from a loan company? Not only have you been granted more money than you might need, but the interest alone, especially of loan companies, is well over 25% that you have to pay back, and you are highly getting robbed. The advantage of an instant cash out when it comes to these companies is that it's my money when I want it, and there's no loan or interest that has to be paid back. And considering these companies do have a set day that they pay on, and they do pay on every one of those set days, if I want something earlier, or if I'm having a special accommodation, well then paying a tiny fee to do so, that's fine by me. But again, I can understand why people don't want to do that. But I will just say this. I would do that any day of the week, knowing that that's the money that I made that I was going to be granted anyways too, versus getting set up with something that's going to cost me 25% of my income later. I was never in a situation where I worked where I could ask my boss for my money in advance, such as what you see on the movies, where you get your pay, I don't know, a week or two early. I worked for companies that had payroll, that had everything set up at specific times, and that's when your money was granted. I would say for the first 6 to 8 weeks to being self-employed and having my income done differently for paydays, it was definitely an adjustment because I was always calculating every 2 weeks because that's how my bills were set up prior. However, having paydays set up like this has provided me with a much more better understanding on how money works and how I should structure it better. So in the long run, I not only am getting paid earlier when I need it, but I've learned so much more about my own personal finances and how to delegate them easier so that my life overall is not a struggle when it comes to money anymore. And I have things put into place based on somebody that's self-employed versus somebody that works for an employer. I do have other income streams. However, they only pay me monthly, which are YouTube and even Amazon affiliates. And going from 2 weeks to monthly is not in my books as of right now. Plus, the income is not fully there that I want. So, adapting to a new lifestyle of getting paid weekly or whenever I want has truly been a benefit for this gig worker, and it's something that keeps me satisfied. But as well, I've learned that it's also just something that a lot of self-employed people have the benefit of having. If you have an online business, for example, you don't have to cash out every week. You can cash out your money in advance, and a lot of these websites that you're set up for your online business take a small percentage to give you that money right away. I think it's just more of how the world is working when it comes to financial aspects of having people either working for them or joining their team, because people want money and they're always going to want it now. In my books, it does not matter to me if you get paid monthly, quarterly, which quarterly probably sucks, but I'm sure some people do, weekly, every 2 weeks, and no, I'm not saying these in order, because it doesn't matter. However you get paid is best for your lifestyle. I simply want to talk about the benefits that actually does come from being a gig worker when it comes to payday, because I've seen the difference, and a lot of people I've noticed don't talk about that fact. They talk a lot about the freedom. But for a lot of us, freedom is money. And even though a lot of us gig workers don't make a lot of money, we have a lot of freedom of getting the money whenever we want it. Next week, on the Dash with Ash. I'm going to be talking to you lovelies about the seasonal changes of gig work. You actually might be pretty surprised upon how the seasons reflect towards us gig workers and how we make our money. I'll catch you lovelies in the next episode.